The words didn't just cut, they felt like a cold bucket of slush being dumped down the back of my neck. You don't have a family of your own anyway, Cassie, so it just works out. My mother, Linda Mercer, said it with the kind of airy, practiced nonchalance she usually reserved for commenting on the neighbor's overgrown lawn or the price of premium gas. She didn't even look up from the gravy boat she was refilling. We were all crammed into her dining room in Millbrook, Virginia, a house that looked like a Pinterest board for suburban perfection but felt like a pressure cooker with a faulty valve. It was Thanksgiving dinner, the one day a year where we all pretended that the cracks in the foundation weren't wide enough to swallow us whole. The air in that house was thick. It was a suffocating blend of roasted turkey, cinnamon sticks simmering on the stove to hide the smell of Linda's hidden cigarette habit, and the faint, bitter tang of the dinner roll she'd scorched because she was too busy playing air traffic controller for everyone else's lives. My oldest sister, Sarah, was there, looking frazzled in an expensive cashmere sweater that her 3 kids were currently using as a napkin. Her husband, Mark, was already 3 beers deep, staring into the middle distance like he was trying to astral project out of the room. Then there was my brother, Tyler, and his wife, Megan, who were busy gentle parenting their 4-year-old twins, which mostly involved letting the kids use the mahogany table as a percussion instrument. And then there was me, Cassie, 27 years old, single, a registered nurse who pulls 60-hour weeks at the county clinic, dealing with everything from gunshot wounds to geriatric tantrums. I was sitting in the flex chair at the end of the table, the wooden one from the kitchen that's basically a bridge between the family drama and the dirty dishes. Before we dive deep into my story, please make sure to subscribe so you never miss a moment and drop a comment below with your city and the exact time you're joining us for this story. I love seeing where in the world the Mercer family drama is reaching. Now, let's get back to the story. Wait, back the truck up, I said, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. What exactly works out? Linda clinked her wine glass, her eyes scanning the room with the practiced authority of a drill sergeant in a floral blouse. She gave us that smile, the one she uses when she's about to ask for a kidney but makes it sound like she's doing you a favor. The Christmas schedule, honey, she chirped. I've been crunching the numbers. Sarah and Mark are finally taking that all-inclusive resort trip to the Keys. Lord knows they haven't had a them night since the Obama administration. And Tyler, I know Megan's folks in Sedona are dying to see the twins. So the plan is for you to stay here at the house and watch all 5 grandkids. It'll be like a little cousins camp. Won't that be fun? Sarah didn't even pause her conversation about her local Pilates studio. She just reached into her designer bag and slid a laminated, color-coded sheet across the table toward me. It landed in a puddle of spilled cranberry sauce. I updated the allergy list, Cass, Sarah said, her voice flat and entitled. Leo is off dairy this month. He gets real cranky if he even smells a piece of cheese. And Mia needs her humidifier cleaned with distilled water every night. I color-coded the meds so you don't screw it up. Don't be flaky this year, okay? We really need this break. I looked at the sheet. It looked like a manual for a nuclear power plant. Did anyone think to ask me if I had a pulse? Or, I don't know, plans? Table went dead silent. The only sound was the radiator clanking in the corner like a warning bell and Mark's fork scraping against his plate. Plans? Tyler laughed, a short, sharp sound that made my skin crawl. Cass, you're a nurse. You work shifts. You don't have a husband to go home to or kids to wake up with. What else are you gonna do? Sit in your studio apartment and eat cold pizza while watching reruns of The Office? It's family, sis. This is what we do. We step up. I looked around the table. Nobody flinched. Nobody said, wait, maybe Cassie wants to be a person this year. They just looked at me with that expectant, suffocating family-first stare, the kind of look that really means everyone else first, Cassie last. Actually, I said, my heart starting to hammer against my ribs like a trapped bird, I do have plans. Linda's smile didn't drop, but her eyes turned into 2 chips of blue ice. It was a look I knew well. It was the don't embarrass me look. Plans? What plans? You're being dramatic, Cassie. It's just a few days. You're the only one with the flexibility to do this. Don't be selfish. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I didn't point out that my flexibility was actually just a lack of shackles. I just swallowed a bite of turkey that felt like sawdust and realized something with terrifying clarity. The non-refundable plane ticket to the Outer Banks tucked into the side pocket of my scrubs bag was staying right where it was. And for the first time in 27 years, I was going to be the bad guy. To understand why I didn't throw my wine in their faces right then and there, you have to understand the legacy of the reliable daughter. This wasn't a one-time thing. It was a decades-long construction project built on the back of my silence. In the Mercer family, I was the youngest, the easy child. Sarah was the drama queen who needed a stage. Tyler was the golden boy who needed a trophy. I was the one who got good grades, cleared the table without being asked, and learned early on that if I didn't cause a problem, I got a pat on the head. But easy children grow up to be convenient adults. It started 5 years ago. I was 22, fresh out of nursing school, working my first grueling shifts at the hospital. Sarah had just had her first baby, and Mom pulled the family first card. Just a few hours, Cassie. She's exhausted. You're so good with babies. Those few hours turned into a weekend. A weekend turned into every major holiday. By year 3, I was essentially an unpaid nanny with a medical degree. While my siblings were opening gifts, sipping spiked eggnog, and taking naps, I was in a back room changing diapers, warming bottles, and rocking screaming toddlers to sleep. They didn't see Cassie, the professional woman who managed cardiac arrests and kept people from bleeding out. They saw Cassie, the free labor. I remember year 4 vividly. Sarah and Mark went to a mountain retreat. Tyler and Megan went to a concert in D.C. I was left with 4 kids under 5. My nephew, Toby, spiked a fever of 103 degrees Fahrenheit on Christmas Eve. Called Sarah. No answer. She was at a silent retreat. I called Mom. She told me, "You're a nurse, deal with it. Don't ruin her vacation." I spent $180 of my own money at an urgent care clinic that night because Sarah hadn't left me an insurance card. I slept on an air mattress that leaked air until I was lying on the cold hardwood floor by 3 a.m., holding a sick toddler. When Sarah got back on the 26th, she didn't ask if I'd slept. She didn't offer to pay for the medical bill. She handed me a $12 World's Best Ant candle from a gas station and asked why the kitchen floor was sticky. That was the mold. And I had let myself set in it. But this year, the cement was cracking. After that disastrous Thanksgiving dinner, I drove back to my studio apartment above the hardware store on Main Street. It's a small place, 480 square feet of not much, but it's mine. The radiator clangs at 2 a.m. like someone knocking, and the view is just a dumpster and a brick wall, but I don't have to share the remote and nobody asks me to wipe their nose. I walked inside, kicked off my boots, and went straight to the fridge. Held up by a magnet of a crab I'd bought on a whim was a printout of my approved time-off request. December 22nd through the 28th, signed by Dr. Nguyen 2 months ago. Next to it was a small notebook with a handwritten ledger I'd been keeping since June. Every extra night shift I picked up, every double I pulled on a holiday for the time and a half pay, every $7 latte I skipped at the hospital cafeteria, every no I said to a girls' night out, it was all there in blue ink. Total saved, $2,340. The goal, a week at a weathered gray cottage in North Carolina with my best friend Jules. Jules is the only person who actually sees me. She's a traveling nurse, a woman who knows what it's like to have your soul sucked dry by 12-hour shifts and a family that treats you like a household appliance. When I graduated nursing school, my mom missed it because she had a stress headache from planning Sarah's baby shower. My siblings forgot the date. Jules was the one standing in the parking lot with a bouquet of sunflowers and a bottle of cheap champagne. I called her that night. I was sitting on my floor, the moonlight hitting the dusty floorboards. "I'm doing it," I whispered. "I'm not telling them. I'm just going to ghost." "Cassie," Jules said, her voice steady and low. "You know they're going to lose their minds, right? The group chat is going to become a nuclear wasteland." Are you ready to be the villain in their story? I've been the background character for 27 years, Jules, I said, my voice shaking. I think I'm ready for a lead role, even if it's the antagonist. Then pack your bags, honey, she said. The ocean is waiting. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in method acting. I went to work, I treated patients, I changed dressings, and I watched the Mercer Family Hub group chat blow up my phone like a slow-motion car crash. It was a constant stream of demands disguised as reminders. Linda, Cassie, I'm forwarding Sarah's list. Kid's schedule is the same as last year. Don't forget Noah's eardrops. Be at the house by 9 a.m. on the 23rd. I need you to help me prep the appetizers for the neighborhood party, too. Sarah, and make sure you pick up the organic apple juice. The store-brand stuff makes Leo hyper. Also, I'm leaving 3 loads of the kids' laundry for you to flip while they're napping. It'll help me out so much. Tyler, hey Cass, can you also take my truck for an oil change while the kids are napping on the 24th? It's been making a clicking sound. You're a lifesaver, sis. Love ya. I didn't reply yes. I didn't reply no. I just tapped read and let the silence sit there. In their minds, my silence was consent. They couldn't imagine a world where I didn't just show up and do what I was told. I was a household appliance with a name, and appliances don't have plans. Clinic, I was a ghost. I moved through the halls with a secret tucked in my chest like a warm stone. Every time a patient thanked me for being so helpful, I felt a twinge of nausea. I didn't want to be helpful anymore. I wanted to be a person. I wanted to be selfish. I wanted to know what it felt like to have a Christmas that didn't smell like dirty diapers and resentment. About a week before Christmas, I got a call from Aunt Pauline. She's my mother's younger sister, a retired teacher who lived 40 minutes south and showed up to family events maybe twice a year. The most of the family thought she was just difficult or antisocial. I see the group chat, Cassie, Pauline said, her voice raspy from years of teaching and a secret cigarette habit she shared with my mother. Oh, hey, Aunt Pauline. Yeah, it's a lot. I'm just trying to get through the week. It's bullshit, she corrected, her tone sharp as attack. When I was your age, Linda made me organize every family reunion. Invitations, food, cleanup, the whole 9 yards. I did it for 8 years while she sat on the porch and drank mimosas. And when I finally stopped, she told the whole family I was selfish and abandoning the family. Sound familiar? My throat tightened. I sat down on my unmade bed. What did you do? I stopped showing up until they treated me like a guest, not the hired help. Took 3 years of them not speaking to me, but they finally learned. Whatever you decide, sweetheart, choosing yourself isn't the same as abandoning your family. It's just resigning from a job you never applied for. Then she dropped the bomb. And Cassie? I've been reading that chat for years. I accidentally got added to a side thread between your mom and Sarah last night. I think you should see it. She sent me a screenshot. It was from a private thread. Linda, don't worry about Cassie. She'll complain a little, but she'll be there. She likes feeling needed. It gives her something to do since she doesn't have a real life anyway. It's better than her sitting alone in that depressing little apartment over the hardware store. We're actually doing her a favor by giving her a family holiday. I read it once, then twice. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. The depressing little apartment was the only place I felt safe. The favor they were doing me was actually just a way to keep their own lives running smoothly. The guilt I'd been carrying? It didn't just vanish. It turned into a cold, hard diamond of resolve. They didn't think I was a good daughter. They thought I was a pathetic loser who should be thankful for the privilege of being their servant. The morning of December 23rd was brutal. A thin, mean frost was forming on the windshields in the parking lot, and the Virginia air was sharp enough to sting your lungs. My alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. I didn't hit snooze. I was already awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the radiator clang its final warning. I packed my one carry-on, sundresses, a swimsuit, a thick oversized sweater, and the paperback I'd been trying to read since the summer. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked tired, but my eyes were clear. I looked like someone who was about to set her own house on fire just to see if the family would help her put it out. Jules pulled up at 6:15 a.m., her headlights cutting through the pre-dawn dark. I locked my apartment, wheeled my suitcase down the stairs, and loaded it into the trunk of her SUV. "You ready to be the most hated woman in the state of Virginia?" she asked, a wicked grin on her face. "Drive," I said, "before I lose my nerve and end up folding Tyler's laundry." The airport, everything was a blur of holiday chaos. Crying babies, stressed parents, the smell of burnt Cinnabon and jet fuel. For once, the crying babies weren't my problem. I wasn't the one holding the diaper bag. I was just a girl with a ticket and a secret. At 8 a.m., we were sitting at gate B7. At 8:05 a.m., my phone lit up. It was the Mercer Family Hub. Group chat: Linda, "Good morning, sunshine. Sarah is dropping the kids at 10 o'clock. Be here by noon at the latest. I put the air mattress in the kids' room for you. The guest room is being used for Sarah's extra luggage and the kids' play area. See you soon." I looked at the message. The air mattress. In the kids' room. Not the guest room. Not even the couch. I was being relegated to a deflating plastic bag on the floor of a room with 5 children, 3 of whom still wet the bed and 1 who screamed every 90 minutes. That was my family holiday. That was the favor they were doing me. I handed my boarding pass to the attendant. As I walked down the jetway, I felt the engines hum beneath my feet, a deep, low vibration that seemed to sync up with my own pulse. We lifted off, tilting away from the gray, frozen fields of Virginia and toward the Atlantic. Somewhere down there, my mother was setting out juice boxes and expecting her servant to arrive. We landed in North Carolina just after 10 a.m. The air was different here. It smelled like salt, damp pine, and freedom. It was cool, but there was a softness to it that Virginia didn't have in December. As we walked toward the rental car, Jules looked at me. "You've been staring at that phone for 10 minutes, Cass. You gonna do it?" I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I'd had it on airplane mode for 2 hours. I knew the explosion was coming. I knew that at exactly 12:01 p.m., the Mercer family had entered a state of total nuclear meltdown. I took a deep breath, braced myself, and turned my phone back on. 6 missed calls from Mom. 3 from Sarah. 1 text from Tyler. "Hey, where are you? Mom's calling me. She sounds like she's having a stroke." The group chat hadn't just gone from quiet to active. It had reached terminal velocity and detonated. I stood in the humid air of the Outer Banks, the rental car idling behind me, and watched the timestamps roll in like a digital autopsy of my reputation. 11:58 a.m. Mom. "Cassie, where are you?" "Sarah's already gone. She had to leave for the airport early to beat the traffic. Kids are here. Call me." 12:03 p.m. Mom. "Again, this is not funny. I'm calling you. Answer." 12:07 p.m. Mom, all caps. "Cassie, answer your phone. Now." I stared at the screen. My heart was thumping, but it wasn't that frantic, "I'm in trouble" thumping I'd lived with since childhood. It was a steady, rhythmic drumbeat of resolve. Beside me, Jules was loading our bags into the trunk of the SUV, whistling a tune and pretending not to watch me, though I could see her eyes darting toward my shaking hands. 12:12 p.m. The phone buzzed in my palm again. Linda Mercer. I didn't let it go to voicemail this time. I slid the bar to the right and held the phone to my ear. "Cassie, where on earth are you?" My mother's voice was a high-pitched gale, the kind of tone she used when a caterer was late or a centerpiece was lopsided. "Sarah left an hour ago. Tyler just dropped his twins off. I have 5 children here under the age of 8, and I have the neighborhood council meeting in 2 hours. You were supposed to be here at noon." "I'm not coming, Mom." There were 3 seconds of silence. I actually counted them. 1, 2, 3. I could almost hear the gears of her brain grinding, trying to process a word she hadn't heard from me in a decade. What do you mean you're not coming? Are you sick? If you have a fever, you need to take some Tylenol and get over here. We have a schedule, Cassie. I told you at Thanksgiving I had plans, I said, my voice surprisingly level. I told you again in the group chat I wasn't available. You chose to ignore me. I'm in North Carolina, Mom. I'm at the beach. I'm going to have a Merry Christmas, and I hope you do too. You're where? Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. My hands were steady. My voice had been steady. And the quiet afterward, standing in a sun-bleached parking lot with the sound of seagulls overhead and the salty wind whipping sand across the pavement, felt like the first honest silence I'd had in years. At 12:20 p.m., the Mercer family hub erupted. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Sarah, from the airport, Mom, what do you mean she's not coming? She left? She left us with 5 children. I'm at the gate. I can't just walk out. Tyler, wait, seriously? Cass went to the beach? Who does that on Christmas Eve? I didn't reply. I locked my phone and slid it into my back pocket. Jules opened the driver's side door, leaned over the roof of the car, and gave me a look that was half concern, half triumph. Beach, she asked. Beach, I replied. The ocean was 7 minutes away. My family was 300 miles behind me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the one who was missing. I felt like the only one who had finally arrived. I found out later, through the group chat which I read like a distant observer reading a history book, that the chaos had only just begun. Sarah didn't make it to the resort in the Keys. She'd been at the gate, her boarding group being called, when Mom's frantic call came through. Her husband, Mark, was already in his seat in first class, probably halfway through a pre-flight mimosa, when Sarah came storming onto the plane to drag him off. The fury that followed was legendary. Sarah, I had to leave the airport. The resort was $1,200. Non-refundable. The change fee on my ticket was $400. That's $1,600 gone because Cassie decided to take a mental health day. I hope you're happy, Cass. You ruined our year. But then a crack appeared in the united front. Mark apparently didn't share Sarah's enthusiasm for the blame Cassie game. Sarah posted a frantic update an hour later. Sarah, Mark is being a total jerk about this. He says this is our problem, not Cassie's. He literally said to my face, you can't keep dumping your kids on your sister and expect her to say yes forever. I can't believe he's taking her side. I read that message 3 times. Mark, who I'd never heard say more than pass the rolls at Thanksgiving, had actually spoken the truth. It was a strange, cold comfort to know that even within their own houses, the walls were beginning to shake. By 2 p.m., Sarah and Mark were back at Mom's house. I could picture it perfectly. Sarah standing in the foyer, her bag still packed, her mascara smudged from a mix of rage and airport humidity, staring down 5 children who were currently dismantling Mom's traditional Southern Christmas tree. And that's when Sarah asked the question nobody had thought to ask before. Mom, she said, or so she reported in the chat, did Cassie actually say she would watch them? Did she ever text back yes? The silence that followed in the chat was deafening. Linda, she didn't need to say it, Sarah. She always does it. She's the reliable one. It was understood. Sarah, Mom, understood isn't a contract. She told us at Thanksgiving she had plans. We all just laughed at her. 1 sentence. And in that sentence, a crack appeared in the wall my mother had spent 4 years building. It wasn't a big crack, but it was enough to let the light in. Tyler, as usual, was the last to get it. He was 2 hours away at his wife Tina's parents' house when Mom called him, demanding he come back to help. Tyler, Mom wants us to drive back. She says she can't handle the kids alone and Sarah is compromised. We just got here. Tina's parents cooked a 10-pound ham. Then, 20 minutes later, Tyler posted again. And this time I could tell Tina was standing over his shoulder. Tone was too direct, the punctuation too clean. Tyler, Linda, we're not coming. We're with family. Sarah and Mark are there, that's 4 adults to 5 kids. You'll manage. And honestly, Cassie deserves a break. We'll talk after the holidays. I sat on the porch of the Airbnb that evening, a block away from the Atlantic, with a blanket over my knees and a glass of wine in my hand. Tina texted me privately a few minutes later. Hey Cassie, it's Tina. I want you to know something. We pay our babysitter $25 an hour for 2 kids. You watched 5 kids for 3 days last Christmas. That's over $1,800 in professional labor you gave away for free. And your mom called you selfish for stopping. You're not the selfish one. Enjoy the beach. I held the phone against my chest and listened to the waves crashing in the distance. The guilt tried to surface. That old familiar itch that told me I should be there, I should be helping, I should be the good daughter. But Tina's math was harder than my guilt. I wasn't a daughter to them, I was a line item they didn't want to pay for. My mother, however, has always been a master of one specific craft, controlling the narrative. She did it when my father left, spinning a tale of her own martyrdom that lasted a decade. She did it when Aunt Pauline pulled away, labeling her unstable to anyone who would listen. On the night of December 23rd, she went to war. While I was sitting in a small, dim seafood restaurant near the pier, sharing a plate of calabash shrimp with Jules, my phone started buzzing with numbers I hadn't seen in months. Uncle Ray, Cassie, your mother says you walked out on the family in a crisis. That doesn't sound like the girl I know. Call her and fix this. Aunt Donna, honey, it's Christmas. Whatever happened, family comes first. Don't let a little vacation ruin your relationship with your mother. Cousin Brian, heard you ditched the kids. That's cold, Cassie. Mom is crying. She'd gone down her contact list like a general rallying the infantry. She'd told them her version, the one where I vanished without warning, abandoned 5 helpless children, and ruined the holiday because I wanted a tan. She left out the part where she never asked me. She left out the 4 years of unpaid labor. She left out the depressing apartment comments. Jules watched me scrolling through the vitriol. What are you going to do? Nothing, I said, setting my phone face down on the wooden table. Not tonight. My mother has spent 30 years directing the play of our lives. I'm just the first actor to walk off the stage. She doesn't know how to handle a script change. But Mom had forgotten one crucial detail. Aunt Pauline was still in the group chat. And Pauline had been keeping receipts. I woke up on Christmas morning to sunlight streaming through white linen curtains and the rhythmic, low-frequency roar of the ocean. There was no alarm. No sound of a toddler screaming for juice. No mother calling my name to ask where the extra napkins were hidden. Cottage smelled like fresh coffee and salt air. I sat on the porch in an oversized hoodie, my hands wrapped around a warm mug, and for a full hour I didn't look at the screen. It was the first Christmas morning of my adult life where I woke up without an agenda set by someone else. 300 miles north, however, the other Christmas was in full-blown meltdown. I checked the chat while Jules made breakfast. 6:18 a.m. Linda. The kids are already up. Lily wants to open presents, but I can't find the scissors for the plastic packaging. Sarah is still asleep. Help. 7:45 a.m. Sarah. Mom, just let them open the gifts. I'm exhausted. Noah is crying again. Did anyone give him his eardrops? 8:30 a.m. Linda. I don't know where the drops are, Sarah. You were supposed to show me. The chaos I'd been managing alone for 4 years was now being distributed among the people who created it, and they were drowning in it. They weren't mad that I was gone. They were mad that they had to be parents and grandparents. At 9:12 a.m., a private message came through from Tyler. Hey. Merry Christmas. I hope you're having a good time wherever you are. Pause, then a second message. I'm sorry I never spoke up at Thanksgiving. I knew it was wrong, but it was just easier to let you do it. I'm an idiot. Sorry, Cass. Something in my chest finally loosened. A knot I didn't know I was carrying, the knot of being unseen by my own brother, slowly unspooled. Every Christmas at 3 p.m., the Mercer family does a grand video call. It's a tradition born of the pandemic that Mom refused to let die because it allowed her to show off her decorated house to the extended relatives. I almost didn't join. I was sitting on the beach, the sun warm on my face, feeling a million miles away. But Jules looked at me and said, "Cassie, you're still a Mercer. You just changed the terms of your employment. Go on. Show them you're not hiding." 3:02 p.m. I tapped the link. The screen filled with faces. Uncle Ray and Aunt Donna in their wood-paneled den. 2 cousins from Roanoke waving from a kitchen. Tyler and Tina at her parents' house. Sarah, looking like she hadn't brushed her hair, sitting on Mom's couch with a crying baby. And Mom, front and center, wearing her festive best grandma sweater, her camera angled perfectly to hide the mess of wrapping paper behind her. Then my square appeared. Me, sitting on a porch, the blue Atlantic Ocean stretching out into infinity behind my head. The reaction was instantaneous. "Oh, look who decided to show up," Mom said, her voice dripping with a saccharin poison. From a beach, no less. Must be nice to have so much free time while your sister's vacation was ruined. Uncle Ray cleared his throat. "Linda, let it go. It's Christmas. Let it go." Mom's voice rose. "Ray, she left 5 children without a sitter on Christmas Eve. Do you know what kind of person does that to their own flesh and blood?" I didn't flinch. I'd spent 24 hours in the salt air, and I felt like I'd grown a second skin. "Mom," I said, my voice projecting clearly through the microphone. "You never asked me to babysit. You told me I was going to. I told you I had plans. You ignored them because you don't think I have a real life. Well, this is my life. It's right here. And it's pretty great." "A vacation over family?" Mom sneered. "When was the last time anyone in this family asked you for anything but help? We include you in everything. You include me in the work, Mom. You don't include me in the joy." And then, from a small square in the bottom corner of the screen, Aunt Pauline unmuted herself. "Linda," Pauline said, her voice calm and heavy, "I think it's time we talked about this honestly." Call went dead silent. 15 faces in 15 little boxes went perfectly still. Pauline was wearing her reading glasses, her camera tilted up toward her ceiling fan. She looked like a woman who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "Linda, I love you," Pauline continued. "You're my sister. But I've been watching what you do to Cassie for 4 years, and I watched you do the same thing to me for a decade before that. You treat people like furniture. You expect them to be there when you want to sit down, and you're offended when they move." "Pauline, this is not the time," Mom started. "It's exactly the time. I'm in the family group chat, Linda. I've read every message. Every schedule you sent Cassie without asking. Every list Sarah forwarded like Cassie was a hired servant. And I've seen how you talk about her when you think she isn't paying attention." "What are you talking about?" Mom's face was beginning to pale. "Do you want me to read the messages, Linda?" Pauline's voice didn't waver. "Because I saved the screenshots. Not because I'm petty, but because when I read them, I felt sick. I wanted a record of what gaslighting looks like so I'd never let it happen to me again." "Pauline, don't you dare," Mom hissed. But it was too late. Pauline adjusted her glasses and began to read from her phone. "December 24th last year, 3:14 p.m. While Cassie was at the urgent care clinic with Noah, you wrote this to Sarah. She's fine. She likes feeling needed. It gives her something to do since she doesn't have a real life anyway." On the screen, Sarah closed her eyes. The relatives in Roanoke looked away from their cameras. "And 3 weeks ago," Pauline continued, "the night after Thanksgiving, after Cassie told you she had plans and you laughed in her face, you typed this to the inner circle thread. Cassie doesn't have a real life anyway. She should be grateful we include her at all. It's better than her sitting alone in that depressing little apartment. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. It was the kind of silence that has a physical weight, pressing in from every direction. In my mother's living room, through her microphone, I heard the soft, barely audible sound of the furnace clicking on and the wind rattling the window pane. "Linda," Uncle Ray's voice was low. "Is that true? Did you write that about your own daughter?" My mother's eyes were wet. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. She looked like a master chess player who had just realized she'd been in checkmate for 10 moves. It was taken out of context," she finally stammered. "Mom," Sarah said from the couch, her voice raw. "I was in that chat. I replied to those messages. They weren't out of context. We were being jerks. What followed was a masterclass in a person running out of weapons." Mom tried guilt. "I raised you all alone. No help. This is how you repay me." Aunt Donna shut that down. "Linda, nobody is ganging up on you. But that's not how you talk about family." Mom tried gaslighting. "Cassie is being dramatic. She's always been the sensitive one." Tyler shut that down. "She's not being dramatic, Mom. She asked us for help 3 years ago. We all said no. That's on us." Finally, Mom turned the camera toward the kids playing on the floor. "Look at them. They don't understand why Aunt Cassie isn't here. This is what she did to them." "Mom, stop," Sarah said, standing up and walking over to the computer. "Cassie didn't do this. We did. We assumed she was a resource, not a person. I'm ending this call." The screen went black. I sat on the porch for a long time after the call ended. The sun was dropping toward the horizon, turning the sky a deep, bruised purple and gold. I waited for the guilt to hit, the familiar voice that whispered, "You should have just stayed. It would have been easier." But the voice didn't come. Instead, I felt space. Room to breathe. Like I'd been holding my breath for 4 years and I'd finally, slowly, completely exhaled. I flew back to Virginia on the 27th. The studio apartment didn't feel depressing when I walked in. It felt like a fortress. Over the next month, the pieces of my family began to rearrange themselves. Sarah and Mark lost $1,600 on their ruined trip. They had a fight so bad that they ended up in marriage counseling, where Mark finally told her he was tired of her family's incestuous level of dependency. On December 29th, a notification popped up on my phone. "Tyler Mercer sent you $180 via Venmo." The note simply said, "For Noah's urgent care bill last year. Sorry it took so long." But you were right. My mother didn't call for 10 days. When she finally did on January 3rd, her voice was different. It wasn't the voice of the general. It was the voice of a woman who had realized she was standing in an empty theater. "Cassie," she said, "I've been thinking. And I know I said things that weren't fair. They weren't just not fair, Mom. They were cruel." "I know," she whispered. "I got used to counting on you. I forgot that you were a person with your own life. I'm sorry." "Thank you, Mom," I said. "I appreciate that. But things are going to be different now. I'll come for Sunday dinner, but I'm not the default babysitter. If Sarah needs a nanny, she can hire one." "I know," she said. First test came 2 weeks later. I went to Mom's for dinner. I set an actual timer on my phone for 2 hours. When I walked in, the table wasn't set for 10. There were no kids running around. It was just 2 place settings, 2 glasses of water, and the smell of chicken pot pie, my favorite, not the kids' favorite. We talked about small things. The neighbors, the weather, my work at the clinic. It was careful, like 2 people relearning a language they'd been speaking wrong for decades. When the timer went off, I stood up, kissed her on the cheek, and left. She didn't try to guilt me into staying to help with the dishes. It's February now. The snow is melting off the roof of the hardware store. On my fridge, there's a new photo. Me and Jules on the beach, coffee mugs raised, the ocean a blurry, perfect blue behind us. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped crossing the one that only went one way. And for the first time in 27 years, I finally have a real life. If you felt that victory for Cassie, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community for more stories of standing your ground.